Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. Today's episode wanted to talk about a recent article from Business Insider where they interviewed the head of talent at Deloitte US. And the head of talent, he said that there's three things that he looks at in a job candidate and his favorite interview question. Business Insider always does these articles for Deloitte. I think Deloitte probably pays for them. But they every year or so or every other year, they interview Deloitte and they talk about how to get a job at Deloitte without really disclosing too much information. But they do like a high level approach and they talk about how many people apply to Deloitte, which this year is over 2 million people. And then they go into the things that the human resources person at Deloitte wants to see. And I guess I stumbled there because they're calling themselves human capital now. Because I guess it went from human resources and then now it's human capital. And sometimes they call people talent. I don't know, it just makes people seem like an object versus seeming like they're people focused. And I don't know. I don't like the term human capital. But they interviewed this guy and he talked about his background a little bit, and he's worked in Deloitte for over 20 years. And they tried to make it seem, or I thought they tried to make it seem that he was interviewing people himself, which there's no shot that he's interviewing anybody unless they're a senior executive that are coming into Deloitte. So I think this is more just a public relations job. And it's kind of unique to do this right now in the economy because the economy's struggling. Companies aren't hiring as much. There's a lot of hiring freezes. So I think this is a way of getting people's hopes up and probably not following through. But let's go through the three things that he looks for in a job candidate. The first thing is looking for the right technical and behavioral skills. And that's why and many of the things that we offer, we talk about the behavioral interview, because a lot of times that's going to be the type of questions that they ask if they do actually give you a real interview. As far as the technical part, I think for the vast majority of candidates coming into Deloitte, you're not going to really have to be crazy technical on your interview. And then secondly, he says that he hopes to see a set of experience that demonstrate your ability to adapt to a changing environment, solve complex challenges, and deliver results. That seems more than one thing there. And then third, he says he looks for a fit within our organization. Are you curious, team-focused, and purpose-driven? These are qualities I believe can complement Deloitte's shared values of leadership, integrity, care, inclusion, and collaboration. This company places a high premium on trust. How has your own compass guided your decision-making in challenging situations? And then it goes into a little bit more after that. He talks about how he would like people to demonstrate high-impact contributions and how to prepare for your interview. And he says to prepare for your interview, you need to focus on what impact that you could potentially make and how you can help Deloitte with your impact. And then how also Deloitte can help you. And then he finishes the interview with telling a story about how there's this really great candidate with a high GPA and a business school and a lot of extracurriculars. But that's not what mattered to him. What mattered to him was the guy had run a marathon. And so that really stood out to him. And I think it seems like a nice ending to the story, but I really doubt that. I think if you have a high GPA and a lot of extracurriculars straight out of college and you're going into Deloitte, they're going to accept you. A lot of the big four accounting firms hiring is just meeting their metrics. And I don't think they do a lot of this unless you're like a senior executive for a key position within Deloitte. I don't think they're going to be doing all this crazy stuff. That's why I think it's this is a little bit more of a puff piece or public relations than it is actually what's going to help you in your interview. It depends on what kind of interview you're going to have. Like, are you just an entry level candidate? If you're an entry level candidate, a lot of times it's just going to be, did you go to the right school? Did you get your GPA? Are you getting your CPA or on your path to your CPA? If you can check all of those, then you're probably on a good path to get the job. If you're not, then you are, but they're still interviewing you. If you don't meet all those things and they're still interviewing you, then I think the way you approach your interview and all of the other things that he mentions in this article are going to be important. You're going to have to click with certain people. You're going to have to click with the HR people, the campus recruiters, the recruiters. You're going to have to click with the partners in the group, whoever's interviewing you. If you're a higher level candidate, you are going to have to interview with the partner or somebody around that level. So I think a lot of this article would be key if you're an experienced hire. But if you're just an entry level candidate coming out of school, then I think a lot of this stuff would not apply. But I mean, for those of you, I know there's plenty of people that are always thinking about interview process, everything, interview questions. I mean, we have a book that's in the show notes that you can use for interview questions, especially behavioral interview questions. Then you can read this article. I'll put that link in the show notes as well. But I just wanted to discuss that today. What the head of HR at Deloitte US looks for in candidates that are going to be looking for a job at Deloitte, and it's also useful for any Big Four accounting firm. So that's the podcast today. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date, and also check out the show notes for useful links. Thanks for listening.